I'm Colin, and this is part 3 of my testimony. Now, this is probably going to be one of the hardest ones for me to share because I'm going to tell you about how I met my wife, who very sadly is no longer with us. But we'll see how we go. Well, the story begins in quite a while ago, and I was involved in various sort of Christian activities, and a group I'd become associated with was talking about having a trip to Israel, and I was interested in going along, and there was quite a bit of preparation for the trip. And part of the preparation was prayer, and lots of people prayed for everybody who was about to go. And I remember there were 4 notable people who prayed for me, and some of them felt that God was saying certain things, and if I just tell you some of the things that they said. So one person said that I need to prepare for a wedding. Another said marriage and Israel would be important. Another said that I should prepare for a wedding. And you can see there's a bit of a theme here. And anyway, I'd kind of put all of these kind of things that were spoken to me together, and I thought, oh, I expect I'm going to go to Israel, and maybe there I'll meet somebody who will end up being my future wife. And I thought, great. So we went on this trip for Israel, and I did enjoy the trip. It was a great trip. I got to travel around a bit. We got to volunteer at a building project that was there, and we met some lovely people. We learned lots of stuff. We visited places that I'd only read about in the Bible, and though it was a great trip, the long and the short of this story is I didn't meet anybody who I felt at all would end up being my wife. So I came back rather disappointed, and I remember sharing this when I got back with a trusted friend, and said, well, you kind of put those things together. That's not actually what God seemed to be saying. You've just put more together to make one big thing. So, okay, fair enough. Anyway, the next thing I was about to do was to take part in a Christian festival, to volunteer at a Christian festival called Living Water, and this was a gathering of Christians across denominations, and a weekend in a May bank holiday. So it's a long weekend where we would camp, and there'd be all sorts of activities. It was all good fun, and I was helping out with one of the young people's groups then. And as I was a graduate of the local university, several students were graduates, were students at that same university, and because I was a graduate, I naturally sort of linked in with them, and we kind of started to hang out a little bit. So we had the long weekend starting on the Friday evening. We'd finish on the bank holiday Monday, and I had one evening meal with this group from UEA. We all sat together and chatted about all sorts of different things. Well, the next meal, I was a little bit late getting there, and I noticed all the people were all sitting at one big table, and there was just one place left. So I walked over, and there was somebody I didn't know sitting there, hadn't seen before, and I said to her, "Do you mind if I sit next to you?" And she said, "No." And so I sat down and started to eat my meal. Now, this was shortly after the Easter break for the university students. Lots of these people hadn't actually seen each other before, so they were busy catching up about what they'd done over the Easter break. And I happened to say, well, I've recently come back from Israel. And as soon as I said that, this lady next to me, young lady, said, "Israel?" And I said, "Yes." And we started to talk. And it turns out that the place I'd spent most of my time there was the very same place that she had spent a year, or almost a year, as in a year out, basically. And we knew lots. We'd met the same kind of people, and she was very interested because she had left there a while ago, and I was able to come back at a later date and show her some photographs so she could see how the building project had got on, and she saw photographs of lots of people she knew, and that was great. So we had this connection, and immediately some of those words that I'd been given as people prayed, I began to ponder. Anyway, we asked if we could keep in touch at the end of the weekend, and she said yes, and so we started to see each other, and quite early on I remember telling her, probably a little unwisely to be fair, that about some of these things that people had prayed over me and felt that God was saying to me, and saying that I think you could be the one. And that must have been quite a shock, but not too much of a shock, because she still kept seeing me. Phew. And we kept seeing each other, we kept getting closer, and I think over the course of time, I think she became convinced too that we were going to get married, and in fact a few months after that, I think, we actually became engaged. So that was all good. And she did not want to get married until she'd finished her university course. So and part of the university course was going for a few months abroad, which I was not too keen on, being separated from her for such a long time. And you've got to remember, this is the time before we had such easy communication as we do now. So it wasn't very easy to speak to her. I mean, we did write letters, and we did send a couple of messages by email, but that was the kind of limited amount of interaction that we had over those few months. Anyway, she did return, and yes, her parents had the double whammy, as it were, of her graduating, and within a few days actually, getting married. So that was we got married in 2000, and we had lots of ups and downs, difficult periods, some just the internal struggles of getting to know one another, and some external pressures too, all sorts of worries and things. So I think I'll leave this part here. Maybe I'll do another one. We'll see how things get on. But yeah, it's been quite a thing. But anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for listening to this part of my story, and I really appreciate it. Bye for now.